everyone, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at what do you need to know about criminal investigations, what makes a good detective, and how do police, detectives and behavioural advisors decide who the offender is. So let's kick off. Criminal investigation is the process of ascertaining whether a person should be charged with an offence or if someone charged with an offence is guilty of it. It's a complex field that has evolved significantly over the years. The detective branch of the Metropolitan Police Service was established in 1842 and later, in 1878, it was reformed into the Criminal Investigation Division. These early developments set the stage for the modern investigative practices we have today. Traditionally, investigative work was seen through three different lenses: craft, art and science. So for craft, this is often procedural. It's rooted in experience, it emphasises understanding of suspects, victims and following established police procedures, and it's also effective case management from police work to court proceedings. Then there's another lens to look through, which is the art lens, and this is suspect driven. This is rooted in intuition and instinct. It involves creative interpretation of evidence, reading criminal behaviour, motivation and also avoidance. And the third lens to look at investigative work through is that of science. So this is very evidence driven. This is rooted in scientific knowledge, including fields like DNA analysis and toxicology reports. It requires expertise in forensic and social sciences, crime scene management, and interviewing techniques. And the best detectives are those that incorporate all three approaches into their work. However, the world of criminal investigation is not without its controversies. The Byford Report in 1982 exposed shortcomings in cases like the Yorkshire Ripper investigation, which could have been resolved earlier. Common complaints include a lack of transparency, miscarriages of justice, abuse of power, and flawed decision-making. We can also break down why flawed decision-making was taking place. This was due to limited personal experiences, such as those who were novice to the field, who were struggling to cross-apply to different cases. It could also have been the unconscious nature of working rules, which is how they were unaware of how they would reach their decisions. There could also have been personal biases, such as racism, sexism and homophobia at play. There could also have been verification bias, which is where you start with a particular point of view and you build the case towards that preconceived idea, which means you may restrict and disregard many things which would actually have taken you in a different direction. Another word for verification bias is confirmation bias, which is where you're building the case around your preconceived ideas. And lastly, another reason for why there could have been flawed decision making is that there could have been an availability error. So to address these issues, there has been a shift in investigative philosophy, moving away from merely proving guilt and focusing more on gaining a comprehensive understanding of the truth. Legislation, education, new services, guidance and research have played key roles in reforming investigative practices. A piece of research by Fahsing and Ask in 2016 was examining the differences between Norwegian and British police services, which both utilised different investigatory programmes. For example, the British has legislation and rules in place on how to investigate crime, and we should not assume that this is the same in all countries. So how does the training affect how someone investigates a crime or not, depending on their culture? The research gave experienced detectives and novice police officers from England or Norway semi-fictitious cases and were asked to decide what action to take. With the British sample, experienced detectives outperformed novice police officers, suggesting that experience does play a role in providing better decisions. However, with the Norwegian sample, the experienced detectives did not outperform the novice police officers, suggesting that resource could be distributed evenly across these two, as they would perform the same on many given tasks. It's important to make sure that there is an overview of the processes taking place within law enforcement and police. So let's start by unpacking the ACPO Core Investigative Doctrine. So ACPO stands for the Association of Chief Police Officers, and this doctrine provides a strategic overview of the investigative process, serving as a framework for good practice. The primary purpose of the ACPO Core Investigative Doctrine is twofold. First, it provides the skills and knowledge necessary for competent investigation, and second, it aims to inspire confidence, both in investigators themselves and in the criminal justice system as a whole. The doctrine covers a comprehensive range of topics to ensure a well-rounded understanding of investigative practices. Let's break down its components. So firstly, there is investigative knowledge. This section focuses on the fundamental knowledge and principles that underpin effective investigations. Secondly, there's the legal framework. Understanding the legal aspects of investigations is crucial to ensuring that all actions are conducted within the bounds of the law. Thirdly, criminal investigative process. Here, the doctrine outlines the step-by-step process of conducting an investigation, from initial assessment to case closure. Fourthly, investigative decision-making. Decision-making is a cornerstone of investigations. It involves determining the best course of action based on available evidence and information. Fifthly, investigative strategies. Developing effective strategies for gathering evidence, conducting interviews, and managing resources is essential to a successful investigation. And lastly, management. Managing an investigation involves overseeing resources, setting objectives, and ensuring that the investigation stays on track. You will see in the visual here that there's a breakdown of activities, decisions, and outcomes, which lead to the outcomes of no further investigation being needed, no charging of the suspect, or going to court with the suspect. There's a complex system that has led up to each of those decisions based on the activities and decisions that have been taken by officers. Now let's dive deeper into the decision-making processes within the ACPO doctrine. First, we have the investigative mindset. This refers to the investigator's approach to understanding the source of the material gathered during an investigation, whether it's from eyewitnesses or DNA evidence. It's about maintaining an open and analytical perspective. Typically involves planning and preparation, as well as examinations, for example, looking at the accounts of eyewitness testimony, asking for clarification, so asking sources to clarify any inconsistencies, and also challenging sources to make sure that there is integrity to what they are saying. Typically, there'll also be recording and collation so that there are no preconceived ideas being formed at this stage. It's just about reporting and gathering that information. There could also be an evaluation taking place at this point in time. Next, there's investigative evaluation. This involves setting clear goals and needing objectives to do so. Looking at the material filters, so what is the relevance, the reliability, and also the admissibility in court for the materials that have been gathered. Organising the knowledge that has been previously gathered, so looking at the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and testing interpretations that are starting to form. Lastly, we have hypothesis testing. This step involves building a scenario that best explains the available material. It's contingent on whether all the available material has been gathered, whether the investigator understands the material, and whether there's no outstanding lines of inquiry to pursue. In some serious and complex investigations, assistance may be sought at this stage in order to test the hypothesis. Now let's explore the role of behavioural investigative advisors within the ACPO Core Investigative Doctrine. Behavioural investigative advisors are a critical part of the investigative process. They are experts accredited by the ACPO who work to evaluate the actions of unknown offenders from a behavioural science perspective. Their role is to provide invaluable insights that can guide investigations. They are typically formed of a small team of full-time accredited behavioural investigative advisors working for NCA. There are only 4 in the UK and it was previously called the NPIA. Most behavioural investigative advisors are consultants working in other professions, as the work is not necessarily full-time or guaranteed. Their role is to advise the investigation by evaluating actions of unknown offenders from a behavioural science perspective. I will now break down the way that they do that within their role. So they could look at crime scene assessment, offence linkage analysis, which is looking at whether 2 crimes can be committed by the same individual or not, predictive profiling, which is looking at the behaviour to see what type of person carried it out, and also prioritisation matrices. This is when you try to prioritise certain suspects over others. Additionally, their role is being a consultant, which means their advice may not always be the sole determinant in an investigation. In conclusion, the ACPO Core Investigative Doctrine and the decision-making processes it outlines are essential tools in the world of criminal investigation. They provide a structured framework for investigators to follow and offer invaluable guidance in complex cases. I hope you found this useful in breaking down what you should know about criminal investigations, what makes a good detective, and how all the different roles such as police, detectives and behavioural advisors all fit together to try and piece together the complexity of who the offender or criminal behind a particular crime could be. Thank you for listening. See you soon with another video.